Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be having a look at this Hellebore flower that I've just picked from the garden in ink and wash. So I've done this in ink. I did some guidelines in pencils first. I started with a nice big circle for the central flower. Makes it easy to fit your petals in if you put some guidelines in first. So with something that's a circular flower that's going to fit more or less into a circle, start by moving your arm really widely, getting some movement going, do a nice big circle and then fit the petals in amongst that. With the top one here, because it was facing away from us, I did an ellipse and then again fit the petals into that. And to achieve the cup shape, some of these lines of the veins and things are going to help you achieve that, but also the shading with your pencil. And so it has these little pink dots in the centre as well, some of the markings which I've put the dots on there in pen. And again, move those round in the shape that the petals go in. They've got some very distinctive leaf shapes of Hellebores, and the leaves come out further than the flower, they're quite big. So get these little serrated edges on the Hellebores, that's quite a distinctive thing with them, and the shape, they've got sort of a three-pronged leaf there. The other side of this one you can't see, and the way that they're fastened to the stem as well is quite distinctive, so try and get that curve in there, the way that they're fastened to the stem. So I just used one pen. It was the Faber Castell Pitt pen and it was the small size. You don't want anything too heavy for something so delicate as this, but I did use quite a bit of black in places. I've put some shadow in to begin with, and that's just going to help us start and build up the form. So it's actually quite a stylised picture really, so I don't want to put a lot of paint on it because it's quite a nice drawing as it is. I don't want to lose that drawing, so I'm just going to put a hint of colour, and it's sort of a greeny colour anyway. There isn't a mass of colour in there, particularly at this time of year when they're starting to fade and make those seed pods, the colours sort of going off them. So it's just greens and blues really, and it's an old green bottle that it's in as well. I'll take a photograph of it to show you. It's like an antique bottle that I dug up from the garden that I like to put flowers in. So we're just going to use a little bit of paint. Now if you did want this drawing, if you didn't want to do the drawing yourself, obviously you've not got the same Hellebore up, but I'm sure you've got flowers in your own garden you can go out and pick and pop in front of you if you want to have a go at them. But if you did want to download this, I will put the link to this drawing in the description below as well, and then you can print that off, download it. I've just get my rubber because I just noticed I've missed rubbing out one or two guidelines there. So at the beginning of the day, it's a good idea before you start any work to get your water bottle and just spray your paints, and that's going to make it much easier to lift the colour out onto your palette. So now we've done that, we'll just have a look at the colours. So we need some nice greens. And I'm not going to make my own today because I'm going to keep it very simple, like I say, just 2 or 3 colours. I'm going to use the sap green from the palette, but with the shop bought greens they can look a bit artificial, so what I do is add a touch of Alizarin crimson to that, and that makes it much more natural, and that's going to be quite a nice colour for the leaves. For the flowers we want a similar colour but with a little bit perhaps of yellow in it. So again we'll get some sap green. And to make a nice bright picture we'll add some cadmium. If it was you wanted to make it a little bit more natural you might go for the raw sienna or something, but let's make it nice and bright, and I'll add some cadmium to that. And again just a touch of the alizarin just to make it a bit more of a natural green. But as you can see that was just a tiny touch. Red's quite powerful compared to your other colours, so just be careful that you don't put too much in. And then we need a much paler one for the stem as well. So the same colours but just a bit more water. Again a little bit of cadmium to make it a bit paler, and a tiny touch of the alizarin, but can you see that's just a tiny touch. So we've got 3 different greens to begin with, but just using the same colours. And then we're just going to get some of that alizarin because that's a perfect colour for those little dots that are in the centre there. A bit more water. But we're not going to need a lot of that. And the bottle itself is a green colour, but it's sort of a greeny blue, so let's get some, again, the same green. So this is just showing that we don't need a lot of colours. We've just got this sap green. Olive green's another nice one that you could use, but like I said, just add a touch of other colours to it to make it a bit more interesting. So if we just add a little bit of blue to that, so that's a cobalt blue, that's going to give us the colour of the bottle, and it needs a bit more watering than that. So I've used, the brush I've used for mixing is a synthetic one, but when I'm actually painting I use my sable one, so I don't use my sable brush for lifting the colour off the, from the pans. So we'll start at the top and work our way down. So the flower colour that we've chosen was this one, so we'll start by putting the petals in. So it's going to be quite a, a precise painting rather than some of the more loose things that I've done more recently. And that's a nice thing about getting a nice accurate drawing to begin with. You can just have fun adding the paint. I'm going to leave that little seed pod at the minute because that's a bit darker, so I'll come back and do that with a different colour. So we'll do the whole thing more or less wet and dry, but I might just drop some of that pink in whilst this is still damp, where those little dots are. I don't know what you want to call them, markings. So just a tiny amount, and we can only see it in these back ones here because the ones at the front, we're seeing the back of the petal. That's just going to give us a hint. So we can sort of dot it, but just let it run into that a bit. Just going over where we put those little pen marks. Now the leaf colour, the leaves are much darker, but with these top ones we're seeing the back of them. So I will use that dark colour that we made up, but I'm going to put a bit of extra water into it because, like I said, we're just seeing the back and they're actually paler than the flower in tone. It's only a subtle shift in the greens, but by adding those either yellow or alizarin to them, it just gives us those different shades. So I'm not going to do a background today. I'm going to try and change my ways because I'm a bit of a scruffy worker normally, and keep within the lines so that we're not going to do a background. We're going to leave that background white. And this paler colour, lighter yellowy colour that we made up for the stems, pop that in there. And we can just see a tiny touch of the back of this leaf, the inside of the leaf, which is slightly darker. If you feel it's not dark enough, you can always come back later and put a second layer on, but I don't really want to. I want to keep it quite simple, really, not too complicated. And I'm just going to use that paler colour that we use for the stem for those seed pods. A bit more yellow in there. So now we come to the central flower. Did I pick the wrong colour up? Yes, I picked the wrong colour up there. It should be this one, and I picked up this one. So we can sort of go around those little, don't know what you want to call them. I'm sure somebody knows the technical term. Little stems coming from those seed pods. If you do have these in your garden and you want them to spread, the best way to do that at this time of year, whilst they've got these pods that are about to pop, is to put some fine gravel underneath the plant. That way it catches all the seeds and you get little ones coming next winter. So this is just a small pad, it's the one I used the other day. I'm trying to think, I'll just have to have a look. The Fabriano one. It's only 7" by 9", so it's not a big picture. So I'm only using a small brush. Like I say, it's a sable one that I use a lot, and you can see that I can do a full petal without reloading my brush. It holds, although it's only small, it holds lots of water because it's a good quality sable one. So that can be the difference in your brushes, really, how much water how much paint they hold, that you don't have to keep lifting your brush off the paper and reloading it, and which means that things can be drying out. So just look at the number, it's a number 3. So it's helpful to know which numbers they are, but like I say, a small one because it's a small piece of paper and we're trying to keep within the lines. So when you're doing something like this where you want it to be quite harmonious with just a few colours and you want it to be quite simple, just make sure you make enough paint up to begin with. You don't want to be having to colour match and get exactly the same colour again if you run out. Which is also a good idea for you to do one petal at a time as well, so that if you do run out of paint, at least you can get that petal finished. And it not be a different colour. Okay, so again, whilst it's wet, we'll just rinse that brush off and I'll pop some of that pink in. Now this flower's also got some blemishes, you know, where it's torn and things like that, but you don't have to do that. It was artistic license, isn't it? We could pretend that it's an absolutely perfect flower with no blemishes. It's starting to dry in here. You can see how that's gone on much drier than that. It's quite warm today, the sun's out, it's nice. So you've got to adjust your painting methods really for the weather when things are starting to dry very quickly. I don't mind that, it looks quite nice and delicate, but I'm just going to tidy off this line here. Can you see where the wet paint there's gone into this drier petal here? And whilst that's still wet, we're going to get some of that darker green, or wettish should I say, like I say, it's drying quite quickly, and just put that in where the shadows are. So just following the lines of that petal. Again, that gets that cup shape a little bit more by having it darker nearer to the centre. It doesn't matter if it touches that pink, let them merge together. And then we'll leave that to dry before we do the seed pod. So we'll come down now to the stalk. So again, we've got that nice pale colour. And we're going to go into the water with that. So it doesn't want to be very strong down here where it's in under the water. And then the leaf colour. Again, on this one we're seeing the back, so we'll just use a paler version for the back here. And here, this is the back of the leaf. So don't worry about touching the other greens with your brush, just let them merge together, it's not going to matter. and it's a bit paler there towards the centre. And then we'll get the dark in the centre of the leaf. Now you could go much stronger than this and much darker. It is very dark in there, but I just wanted the drawing to show through. I didn't want to make it too heavy, so just wanted the difference in the green, but not necessarily going as dark as it is on the actual plant. I knew that I'd go outside the lines somewhere, and I have done here, but don't worry, you should be able to just lift that off. And it's probably not showing up as much to you as it is to me. It's there, easily remedied. So we'll move down onto the bottle colour. Now it's very difficult painting glass, so I'm not going to attempt to get all those little bubbles and bits of water and things. We're just going to do the whole thing really with this colour, and then come back when it's dry and put some extra shadow in. So I'm going to use a little bit of a dry brush technique to leave some bits of white paper. So drag your brush across the bottle in the shape that the bottle's going, so move your arm like that. Maybe should have had a little bit of white here. So just lift it off in places to give a bit more shape. And then we'll leave that to dry, and we'll go back to this seed pod here. And then just to lift it a little bit, I'm just looking at it now and thinking actually I want it to be a bit brighter. I'm just going to add some more pink to begin with, where it has run there. But to be a bit brighter, I think we will put some yellow in. So I'm just going to get some of the cadmium on its own with a little bit more water, and just touch in places where maybe the light's catching, just to brighten it up a little bit. So onto where it's already dry, and looking at where the light's catching maybe, just to make it a little bit more interesting. And down the side of the stem, light's catching one side, and that's enough. Don't overdo it. Again here the light's coming down this side of this petal, and of course these petals you can actually see through them, sort of transparent, so it would be quite a complicated thing to do if you were doing it completely botanically accurate with those colours shining through from behind as well, but just keeping it simple, a nice little beginner's painting, not too many colours. So that's dry, completely dry, where we're going over with the yellow, and we're not overdoing it. I think it just lifts the whole thing a little bit. So down this side of the stem and here, and then I won't put it in where underneath the water. Can you see, that's where I've left that. I've had too much water on the brush when I've been tidying that up, and this is obviously still damp and it's still flowing out. So this bottle's starting to dry now. Like I say, it's drying really quickly because of the weather. So we'll put some more shadow over the top. So this is the open bit, we can see into there, so we don't want to put anything else in there. It's just to make it so that we can see. Again, keeping it very simple. Like I said about being able to see through the petals and things, it's not something that we're going to go into detail doing today. Making it easy, just to give us a little bit of an impression, maybe that is glass. So, but coming across, so we know that that's inside the bottle, and that this area is outside the bottle. And I think that's absolutely enough. So it just shows, and I will just get my the other brush to take this off. It's annoying me now. Is this? Like I said, I should have been more careful and not gone outside those lines. But it just shows how with just a few colours. So all we had was the sap green, alizarin, cadmium, and that was it, wasn't it? Oh, and a little bit of blue in one of those greens. We put some cobalt, but not much. Just shows that you can get a nice, pleasing little picture. And if you want to go darker in places, you can do, but like I say, I quite like it just as it is. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. If you have a go with it, let me know. If you've got a favourite flower that you would like me to go through another day, if there's some flowers that are coming up in your garden now and you'd like to know how to tackle them, then just pop that in the comments below. Anything else you want to ask, just put that in the comments below as well, and I'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.